Well, the 8 Deadly Sins training program grew out of the lessons of the workplace autopsy. These autopsies that I'd done of these terminal employment workplace relationships, and realizing that they were 100% preventable. What did management need to do differently, and how you can effectively ensure that none of your workplace decisions are going to ever end up in the United States legal system. And in the meantime, you're going to have better, more productive relationships with your employees. Well, I've been practicing law for over 25 years. The vast majority of that has been dealing with workplace disputes, workplace litigation, workplace problems. I've worked in virtually every industry. I've worked with profits, nonprofits, government entities. I tend to have an understanding about what are the recurring hot buttons in their workplace. What are some of the cultural challenges they face? And then what I do, whether it's with the 8 Deadly Sins, the Jerks at Work, or the Star Profile program, is adjust those and adapt those to try to create the maximum opportunity for the training to have an impact that goes to where you, the client, have identified the greatest need.
I've been practicing law for over 25 years. I've concentrated on employment law, employment litigation, dealing with workplace issues. But really, on a day-to-day basis, I feel like a different kind of professional. Are you familiar with CSI, crime scene investigation? Well, it's a bit like that. You see, after the body's been removed from the scene of the crime, it's brought to the morgue. And then as part of the investigation, what occurs? Somebody's got to put on that white coat, right? Put on the gloves, put on the mask, open up the victim, look at what did him in and why. And so for me, I think of myself as a coroner of terminal employment relationships. Because the kind of stuff I deal with is the worst of the worst. Because essentially what I do with each new case, with each new terminal employment relationship that is wheeled to me on the gurney, is I look at it, I open it up and see what did it in and why. And of course, the relationships I'm talking about here are relationships that were diseased, were poisoned, were so full of anger and hatred and bitterness that they created this desire for revenge on the part of the employee, a way to strike back, a form, as I talk about in the book, of brain lock, when their minds are so locked up with you as the employer for the pain that you've caused that they literally cannot move on until they strike back at you for what you've done. That's what I describe as a terminal employment relationship. And my role as employment lawyer is to first look and see what happened and why. So I've been conducting autopsies of terminal employment relationships for a long, long time. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of these. Do you suppose I see any patterns? Would you see any patterns if you were conducting these autopsies? What about preventability? What would you say about that? What would be your guess as to the percentage of preventability? The number of times that scene could have been avoided? Any idea? 10%? At least 80. Try 100%. In 25 years of conducting autopsies of terminal employment relationships, I have never yet to this day done one that I said was inevitable, that had to happen, couldn't have been stopped, just got to get through it. So the 8 Deadly Sins and the 8 Virtues arise from the law of the autopsy. The first thing we have to do if we want to manage people effectively, if we want to make sure that none of our decisions ever end up on that gurney, ever end up a CSI scene, we have to learn how to ski. Little background. I grew up in Muncie, Indiana. Anybody familiar with Muncie, Indiana? Middletown, USA, right? Not exactly known for its alpine terrain, would you say, Dave? Not exactly, okay? Just think cornfields, very flat. But after law school, I had fallen in love with the mountains. Decided I wanted to live in a mountainous place. So I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. Joined a major law firm there, young fellow. Everybody here, we got some skiers in this room, by the way. We have some skiers? Okay, a little bit. Anybody skied Utah? Of course, Kay skied Utah. Well, and you skied Utah, Laura. Well, we have a number of, in this firm, lifelong fanatic expert skiers. And they said to me, you know, Jathan, you seem reasonably athletic. You'll catch on. Come with us. So we went to a resort called Snowbird. Some of you know, not the easiest, kindest, gentlest place in the world to learn how to ski. And of course, my friends being lawyers, do you think they took me to the little bunny hill, the little beginning slope? No, right up the tram, 3,000 vertical feet. And there I was, first time on skis, heading down. Well, fortunately it snowed. There was something for me to fall into, break my fall. So just sort of picture a snowball working its way down a mountain, collecting snow as it rolled and it rolled and it rolled. Well, I had no choice but to learn how to ski. And many years later, I had, in the chairlift, so to speak, a sort of an epiphany of a direct correlation between skiing and managing human beings in a workplace. And it goes like this. Start with yourself as a beginning skier. Okay, there you are, first time on skis. Maybe you have nicer friends than mine. They take you to something that isn't quite as, scary looking, but I guarantee you, you're going to have anxiety, right? You're up there, you are, up at the top of that hill, in your new ski garb, locked into these big slats. It's a very uncomfortable experience, but now where do you have to go? You got to go down the hill, right? And what are you worried about? Going too fast and crashing. So the danger is downhill momentum. And so there's a universal, intuitive, self-protective instinct. It's designed to help you. What does it tell you to do? Put your weight back on your skis. Counterbalance downhill momentum with uphill momentum. Get body closer to terra firma behind you, safety. Now, whether you ski or not, what happens when you start down a slope in this position? You die. The very thing you fear comes about. You go too fast, out of control, and you crash. So, if you want to learn how to ski effectively, what do you have to do? Lean forward. You've got to do the literal opposite of what an intuitive, self-protected, probably genetically encoded instinct is telling you to do. You've got to do the literal opposite. You've got to put your weight toward the downhill slope. And to further encourage you, they actually call it the fall line. Okay, you got to put your weight toward the fall line. Why do they call it the stay up line? But that's what you have to do. You have to do literally the opposite of an intuitive, self-protective instinct. Okay? Otherwise, what you fear will come about. Now, let's talk about management. Think about your experiences in the workplace. Ever had a difficult employee? High maintenance employee? Short-fused employee, right? Mount Vesuvius is just one eruption away. Ever had a long-fused employee? Dealt with a few of those. What I mean by long-fused employee? This person tends to be kind of quiet, keep to himself. But after a while, you can't help but wonder if they aren't hearing voices. And if the voices aren't saying, time to clean the guns. Ever managed an employee like that? Think about it. Ever managed an employee where you might be worried that if things don't go well, you might get sued? Well, there's an intuitive, natural, self-protected, genetically encoded instinct to guide your path. And what is it? Avoid. That employee represents danger. That employee represents risk. That employee represents uncertainty. That employee might ruin my day. Avoid. You lean back on your skis. It's an exact parallel. It's an exact parallel. And so the managers who manage effectively, the ones who don't say management would be a great job if only there weren't any people, okay? The managers who actually take satisfaction in what they do, whose employees feel fortunate to have them as bosses, they say, there's a problem here, it's not going to get better on its own, so I'm moving this to the top of the agenda. I'm going to develop a game plan and fix it. It's literally taking that instinct to avoid as a trigger to do the opposite. And so the first deadly sin of mismanagement is allowing that instinct to guide your behavior, thinking that this is helping you, making things safer for you, and the first virtue is to do the opposite and deal with it.